Welcome to today's webinar co-hosted by Rallyware and Promo Republic. We're going to give about 60 seconds for additional people to join. So just bear with us and we'll get started. Have just joined, we're going to give a moment or two for additional people to join, and then we'll go ahead and get started. About a minute or two past the hour, so I'm excited to get started. Today, you are joining Rallyware as well as Promo Republic to discuss how to come out of the COVID-19 shutdown stronger than ever, specifically tailored to franchise brands. So my name is Raquel, and I run strategic partnerships at Promo Republic, specifically focusing on franchise organizations and multi-location brands and all things social media marketing. So today I will be covering everything in regards to external communication and the challenges that brands are facing right now, because as we've seen, the beginning, that March date, it's imprinted in everyone's head, was an immediate shutdown and followed by a quick adoption by franchise businesses across every single industry to digitize really quickly. So now the challenge has kind of evolved into that post-COVID bounce back and how to update the brand norms and marketing strategy since the circumstances have changed so rapidly in the past few months. So this is essentially all about balancing the economic reopening as well as adding that safety layer on top to ensure that whatever your customers are in, again, whatever industry, they feel safe and that you've taken action to protect them during lockdown. So here we're seeing franchisors working on the updates and getting the information passed down to local teams who communicate with and educate their customers and local communities directly. And this is also a really important point that coming back to that offline world, as we call it, the real world, doesn't just mean you can abandon all efforts that you've invested into the digital world for the past few months, because online communications is a method that is here to stay, specifically on social media. And a lot of the customers could potentially still be self-isolating and maybe they need delivery options, or maybe they're observing social distancing for a family member. So just because we have some states opening and different states at different rates, that doesn't mean that the change is there one for all. So this is a really great opportunity to have that localized strategy on social media and in your external communications as a whole, and have it reflected in your marketing campaigns. So today's webinar is going to be all about how to achieve that externally, as well as my amazing friend from Rallyware will discuss how to discuss this internally. So I'm going to pass it over to Dan O'Mara.
Hey, thanks, Raquel. I'm very excited that we get to team up with Promo Republic on this webinar for today. I think it's a very critical topic, when we are starting to talk about internal and external communications and the challenges, what that is. So again, this is Dan O'Mara, VP of Sales with Rallyware, and just excited to be on the call today. My background is many years working with different franchisees or franchisors developing internal processes, whether it's on the marketing side or on the operations side. And today with Rallyware, we are really focusing on the new realm of talent experience and how to really bring together this training and communications, great processes all into kind of one place.
Dan, actually, we lost him, but he's coming back. Don't worry. So let's continue. So I'm not sure where everyone heard or stopped off at. So what we're going to do is just do a little skipping around in the slides and quickly jump to the external communication. And then when Dan joins us again, we can dive into internal again, because we're looking at this holistic approach for franchise brands. Rallywares really gives you the tools for that internal communication, where Promo Republic specializes in external communication. So again, while we wait for Dan, let's dive into external. So he will circle back on all of the important reasons why internal strategy is like at your core. But the first thing that you really need to do while setting up external communications after the lockdown is to really take some time to leverage the learnings and analyze what has worked for your customers during the last few months. Because this has to be that stepping stone or the basis of the updates that you're sharing during reopening. And this has to be shared, and there has to be updates because you want to engage your customers. You want to tell them right at that local level what your franchisee is doing to protect the community and themselves as well as the business. So it's really kind of like field research in a way. So you're going to analyze the numbers with the customers directly, collect the key points, and discuss what is the most important: safety, comfort, support. And once you really understand what matters to your customer, that's where you can have that launch pad as a jumping off point and have an updated brand promise. Because this research will also help you with your content strategy, not only that mission statement, if you will, because what you can evaluate your historic data in the past. What type of content has resonated really well with your audience during lockdown? Do they prefer informative content about your brand, or content that offer them support or something uplifting and light? Because we know this time has been quite heavy and emotional for everyone. So this is a really great step to get a historic overview of your engagement reports, because this can help adjust your strategy. Important research step completed. Then it comes to helping your franchisees and ensure that they are all set to communicate your brand messaging that you've created and share those updates across the existing markets and channels. So the first thing, and as an avid consumer, I can say the most important is the open hours, especially during lockdown. You know, every single industry has their own hours or open schedule according to what state you're in within the US on what you can and can't be open. So I know, for example, I went to go pick up from a restaurant, but I didn't place an order beforehand. I thought I would just go in and out very quickly, and it was closed. But the Google, my business page said they were open. So as a customer, obviously we understand the ebbs and flows and the seasonality of what's happening right now. But still, if you can make sure that the hours are updated, especially with delivery options and whether you intend to keep them past a certain lockdown or open up point, because this would be really helpful if this was all on the corporate website or local micro pages, especially Google My Business, Yelp, Foursquare, because we as consumers are going to look to them to get really easy at the fingertips information and go support the businesses that we want to. It's also a really great chance for you to engage with your customers who are already in your CRMs via email. Local teams can invite them personally to their location. If you're, for example, a clothing retailer, you can extend private shopping hours if you're in a certain city or locale, and you can make special offerings and appeal to the sense of local community, and we're all in this together, because I think that's really one of the great things that has come out of this, is that the feeling of community and that we're all here for each other. But the key in this, there are all of these great channels, is to focus on social media communication, because this has become the central place of information consumption during lockdown. As we know, statistics have shown the increase of time spent on social media has jumped exponentially. So this is a really great way to facilitate those conversations and share your updates easily. And the first one is show that you care. Show that safety is still your number one priority. And this can just easily be reflected in your messaging across social. It could be an icon, wear a mask when you're shopping, or short motto, or an image, or anything that you're adding to your content to show that sense of security that you're providing your customers. And that local teams, as in the franchisees themselves, have the ability to make sure that it's right with their community, because I think that's really where the benefit of being in a franchise comes into play. You have that strong brand messaging, but the franchisees themselves know what's happening and knows the rules and regulations in their city, state, and so on. So it's a great way to give them the opportunity to connect with their local communities. So I do have some examples of what this means. So you can see this conceptualized. So here's a great one from Black Bear Diner that says, "Bears care." This is really cute, first of all, but it also gives a sense of community and that you feel safe. They're announcing their reopening and also assuring that they'll be taken care of. So this is a great way to try and inspire visitors to come back in, and they're operating with all of the procedures and so on. Then we also have Big B Coffee as a great example. It shares the inside. This is team members. Again, social media doesn't have to be all stylized pieces one after another. It's really great to be diverse, show your team, show a little behind the scenes, because that's how you get that sense of personalization and community. So here you can see that they've just shared how, the new normal. They're wearing masks, ready to welcome visitors at a social and safe distance. And this kind of correlates to the next important pillar, which is keeping customers informed. There's a lot of rules depending on what city or state you're in and what franchise you belong to. So it's not just hard for franchisees and franchisors overall. It's hard for everyone. The community, we're all asking questions. We're trying to stay as educated as we can and safe as we can, number one. So by providing them with the information that they would need to be a patron in your store, business, whatever that may be, this really helps them because they can be prepared. They can pack a mask, or they can make sure that they're scheduling hours or doing whatever they need. So sharing this helps answer those questions before they come up. But if they do have more specific questions, like let's say they're commenting on your pages about your policies, or they are asking anything on your pages about your opening, make sure to respond. Your local teams need to be active, monitor, and answer in time. I know this may seem a little bit obvious, but you'll be surprised at how many companies actually are ignoring, let's say the comments on Instagram or questions on their Facebook pages. And this is a really great and often missed opportunity to provide your level of customer service that you would normally in person in a quote unquote offline world. And this is a really important part of customer satisfaction and how they feel about the brand overall. So I just did want to put a little extra emphasis on this for you. And you can see here what we mean by that. With Mainstream Boutique. So this is a great post because they're sharing their new procedures in a formal on the right-hand side image, as well as their hours on the left-hand side. So this is essentially all the information needed about how to operate. This saves their customers about 5-10 minutes that they could have been searching for the information, Googling, asking questions. And we appreciate, the hard work that you're doing, and we as a consumer end up doing less work. So the next thing that we've touched upon lightly through this is creating content that brings value. Social media marketing in general is about having a diverse content plan, Again, you're not going to post just product image, or branded. It's about a diverse plan that brings value. And especially during reopening, people are still spending that high 7-hour per day time on social media. So this is your opportunity to keep them engaged with valuable content. So this means adding that human face to your brand, encouraging local teams to share stories and pictures of their employees, themselves, and how they're preparing the store. You know, this goes back to that coffee example, sharing the team in masks, because if we've learned anything throughout this unfortunate crisis, it's that we're all human and we appreciate that stripped down view. You don't have to be, fully made up for pictures or a quick live video. We appreciate the authenticity and the rawness now more than ever. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel, just share what is happening. And you can create a task list where this can be comprehensive for your team. You can even engage your subscribers to share pictures of how they're using your products during lockdown or what they're missing most. So this is a really great opportunity to also get user generated content, which is your fans and customers doing that work for you. And during lockdown, online workshops or online webinars like the one we're on, or even online workouts. I've even seen a hairdresser retail give an online tutorial on how to cut your bangs, because as we know, the hair has been suffering through this. So there's a lot of room for creativity and authenticity, and there's varied formats that help keep customers engaged. So here I'm going to show you, again, a few examples because I think seeing them in action really helps. So here is a really interesting example, actually, of the reopening of some locations. Doesn't mean that you can actually physically go in the store. It means that you can set up, but obviously businesses want to be proactive and sell. So this was one that had an Apricot Lane retail franchise, did a live video sale for their customers. So they literally walked around with their phone, showed what was there, and you got your items delivered to you. So this is a really, really, I think, creative way. I haven't seen this much before, but it deserves some kudos. Then the last few points is the functionality. So we get a lot of questions about the quality of customer service. What if it's not going to work so well? But we've actually seen that the pandemic has caused the customer service and the e-commerce side to explode exponentially. And there's a lot of tools built in natively to the social media platforms that help facilitate this for your franchise business. Again, whatever the industry may be, there's an offline or digital component to help during this time. Facebook immediately reacted with the launch of its shop feature. It also kind of helped position the company to help businesses to adapt to the crisis. I'm sure you've seen the shop small function on Instagram. There's a lot between the two platforms that really have reacted very quickly to help. So now you get the joy of shopping versus, the kind of chore of just buying. And then the Facebook shop is actually really easy to set up. It's not as daunting as you think. You simply just add your products one by one, or you can export or import in an Excel file, create collections, set prices, and include a little description for each product. And the best part about this, it's really customizable and really easy to do. So the store owner or the sellers can set a cover image for the products, highlight the colors, and really just make it branded, which is really important when you're part of a franchise organization. Autoresponders also help you provide your customers with all of the questions or the answers to the questions that they can get. So during the quarantine, Instagram provided not only tips for businesses to reach out using stories, but also features that can be of service. So you can choose a delivery partner. You can add the link to the products. I'm sure you've seen this in the captions as well. Now you can shop directly from there. So this is all done from Instagram itself. So you can add gift cards, order foods, donate, all from Instagram. So it's really cool to see the native functionality within each social media application react robustly during this very interesting time. And to see what we mean by this, we also have an example of the chatbot, which answers some prompts for you. This one is on Facebook example, because you can, again, get the most frequently asked questions answered really quickly, and the customers can get the information in a heartbeat. So it's really a holistic view of having a great internal plan of the branding, of the marketing and sharing the local authentic stories, leveraging the native functionality, and as well as having this automated as opposed to a really robust problem that's time sucking. So this is where Promo Republic comes into play, because we are a franchise social media automation platform that helps, through the power of AI and brand compliance, ensure that at the head office you're able to give a lot of content or schedule content, and then the end result is the franchisees are able to personalize it to their local markets. So we are really combining the key points of external communication, especially the importance of it now, into a tool that takes, seconds to schedule out content, as opposed to, thinking of everything we discussed today, which can be quite cumbersome. So that's a little overview on external communications. I did want to pause here to see if Dan or a member of Rallyware was able to rejoin the webinar today.
Hey, Raquel, sorry about that. I was on a roll and didn't even realize it.
No problem. Welcome back. So I'm gonna, I gave the overview on external communication. So what I'll do now is go all the way back to the beginning, where you're able to discuss internal communications and give that overview that we might have missed while the microphone wasn't working.
All right. Hey, thanks so much. Appreciate it. So, when Rallyware and all of our customers, we think about this internal communications capabilities, really what this is boiling down to is bringing together training, internal communications, and engagement all into one kind of central hub. Because these challenges that we are being faced with, new flows of information from a franchisor to a franchisee, maybe this is new compliance from state level, from a county level, whatever that means, and then ultimately down to how does that play into the employee overall experience. We're talking about reskilling employees to face new safety protocols, or upskilling those employees. Because maybe we're working off skeleton crews now, and we need to really increase the employees' capabilities. We don't have the revenues to be able to pay the employee base that we used to be able to do it. And then at the same time, maintain that brand consistency across the board. So again, maybe we're upskilling new employees. How do we make sure that customer experience, whether happening online, Raquel, as you pointed out so well, whether that's happening online or whether that's happening in one of our locations that happens to be able to be opening up. And then when we get into this, start talking about this, internal communication, it's not just training, right? It's engagement and just communications with team members in general. And that is really boiling down to how do we really engage employees that are not in the location, maybe not working right now for us, but maybe they're multi-year employees that we'd love to keep them around, and we know that we're going to need them. How do we keep them engaged during this time of unemployment, their furlough, whatever that may be in that particular case? So, and again, how do we maintain that motivation? That's a motivation to keep people excited. Let them, feel comfortable coming back into the office or back into a location or visiting somebody's home to provide some level of service. And then all of that comes down to, we still have a business to run. We still need to make sure that we're still maintaining the performance as needed. So let's see here. All right. Raquel, I think you have, sorry, I think we took over control of the slides there. So, all right, great. So when we're talking about these internal communications and stuff, like we said, it's really developing this hyper effective training framework, and really at scale. And when we start talking about scale, the thing that we're going to really need to realize is that there are certain steps. We're going to go over those steps here in this presentation. And this first step really is integration for just-in-time learning. This is something that Rallyware has been focused on and been working on for many years now. And really, ultimately, what it's designed to do is to make sure that what training is being done, is it needed? Is it effective? And then ultimately, is it driving what it is that we're looking for from that employee? So some of those things, just some examples here would be, which employees are lagging behind in this new compliance training. Maybe there's new safety protocols, new cleaning measurements that are coming into play. And then again, is this being effective? Do we know this? Are we being able to see maybe an increase in foot traffic in our location because people are seeing what our employees are doing and they feel a lot more comfortable about it? And then ultimately, what we were talking about, bringing in ROI. One of the things that we're going to focus a lot on is this just-in-time training is the ability for us to ensure that the training that's being done is for that right person. And then we measure their performance, of course, and we can get some great ROI numbers out of it. But when we get into it, user segmentation for a personalized experience, step number 2. First, again, it starts with data. 2 starts with segmentation. So we use that data to ensure that the right training is getting to the right person. I don't know about you guys, but I'm sure that most of us have experienced some stage in our professional careers where we're doing training and we ultimately find out that, hey, this training I'm spending this hour on has nothing to do with me. And so ultimately we start to change our thought process about how we feel about training in general becomes something we have to do versus something that's really going to benefit me. So by creating these personalized experiences, it really does ensure that the training that I'm doing is right for me based on whether it's leadership training, frontline employees, back office or back of house employees, and administration staff. And then when you start to look at that at global level, is it, at every county, going back to what Raquel was stating earlier about just hours of operations may change county by county by county inside of the same state. So again, how are we making sure that that training is at the most granular level? So, and this ties also into not just a franchisor, but what happens if I've got a multi-unit or a multi-brand franchisee? How do I ensure that I can use this content? Again, if we're looking at reduced hours, reduced revenues, how can we make the most out of the training that we have? And how can we provide a single area where we utilize, say, micro learning and break those pieces down so that we can use those across brands if we need to. And by being able to provide that in a single experience or a single user interaction, it's a very important process. So again, being able to develop this brand consistency is an important element. So the fourth element here is, as we can see, predefined channels for streamlined communications. When we have our field at home, we can't engage with them as much as we used to. How can we set up these channels for internal communications? Yeah, some people are using external channels like, location Facebook groups. It's very popular. So how do we bring this together again into that thought process around training, communication, and engagement? So one of the things that Rallyware does, of course, is bring this together into a single experience. But more than just that is that if we're communicating with somebody on Facebook, and maybe in a closed group just for our location, are we providing the ability to host our training there? are we being able to provide an opportunity to provide a single experience for that? So again, where you can get the communications out, get engagement out to those that are not working right now or that happen to be at home, and we want to be able to keep them engaged and bring them back. So that those predefined channels for communication become a very, very important piece of that structure. So, all right. Okay, so number 5, start implementing gamification. Now, gamification is a fun thing that a lot of companies have been doing. One of the things that we really feel at RallyWare, gamification for the sake of gamification is not really the best approach. It's short-lived, not a lot of great movement just through gamification in of itself. But when we can tie that to performance indicators, maybe some POS data, schedule adherence information, we can bring those together with training. So again, you know, gamification is great. It helps drive people to do things maybe a little bit outside of their comfort zone or a little bit further down the road. But when you interject training into that gamification, now you also give them the step-by-step process on how to do it versus just looking at a leaderboard and saying, hey, I'm in 10th place. Well, that's good. Maybe there's 15 of us. So I need to go up a couple more spaces, but really ultimately, how do I do that? So by ensuring and using gamification elements such as leaderboards, badges, points, I get motivated, I get encouraged, but I can tie that together, of course, with the ability to, with training, and gives me the step-by-step approach to make that happen. So, and gives me the ability to move up that, say that leaderboard. All right, so number 6 here, promote success through a scalable culture of learning and communication. Again, this is where we're kind of bringing everything together, provide this ultimate culture around training, communication, engagement, all into one experience. So we have integrate hands-on learning into daily operations. By triggering the right task, the right activity, the right person, maybe I'm a manager at a location, I've got new employees coming back in, and maybe I need to retrain them or recertify them on certain areas. And what's nice about that thought process is that it doesn't have to just be on a platform. You know, the thought process is that you can now bring people to say, hey, look, review this activity, bring it all together in one experience. Make training continuous, provide scalable on-demand learning, and establish an environment for knowledge transfer. Again, going back to the hands-on learning, a manager shoulder-to-shoulder training, it's a great way for us to develop that knowledge transfer and ultimately encourage engagement. Bringing it back to now ROI assessments. So again, the content that we're creating, the training that we're doing, even though ultimately it's changing right now all the time, is it driving the results ultimately that we're looking for? So again, content is created with a specific goal. When that goal is hit, then we know that we're doing a great job and we're going to get that ROI. So again, POS data, schedule adherence data, running these data and triggering them to that employee training. Ultimately bringing together our holistic experience for that employee to drive that better experience for the customer and really driving that engagement and the longevity with our customers as a whole. So, so normally, again, when we're thinking about this from a segment standpoint, typical programs, frontline employee onboarding, that's going to be a segment in of itself. Continuous remote workforce development. Again, if we've got employees out in the field, this comes into play. product knowledge reinforcement, continuous development and engagement, and recognition as a whole. So ultimately, Raquel, I believe that this ties very well into some of the stuff that Promo Republic is doing when it comes to onboarding of training and employee development, but also at the same time, what's happening at each location is going to be changing day to day.
Exactly. And I think that's the one message that is both true for internal as well as external communication. It's that we don't know, what the states are going to change, what the regulations are. It's literally on a day-by-day basis. And by educating internally and your team and sharing that information externally to your consumers and your community is really how you're able to bounce back and grow and slowly but surely get the business back to normal where it was before all of the chaos, so to speak.
Absolutely. And I think what this really has done is surfaced this needs that we may or may not have known were out there, but ultimately we now know that we have to make some changes to a lot of things on that front.
Exactly. I think one thing that has been echoed is they say in moments of high stress, the changes that were much overdue come to light. So this could be, that time to reevaluate your internal processes as well as to set up those digital processes, which we know came so quickly while everyone is figuring out how to digitize and how to do delivery or how to do curbside pickup or whatever that meant for your specific industry. So I think it's a really interesting time to see what changes will stick moving forward through this once we reach a somewhat level of normalcy again.
Absolutely. So I think just while we're switching to the next process here, one of the things, Raquel, that I think is very valuable is the ability for external and internal communications to come around, because a lot of times, a lot of the external stuff, like one of the slides you showed earlier where they did all of that work and put it out onto their social channel, a lot of the external communications can be used for internal, and internal can be used for external as well. So I think that that cohesive thought process is a very important piece of the overall process.
Great point. I think a lot of people may think, okay, I have to have separate communications or I have to reinvent the wheel. But most of the time, that's really not the case. Like you said, you can reuse or repurpose content that was maybe an internal memo. You want to share what your new cleaning process is, create a really aesthetically great post around that. So it's all about information sharing, and within a franchise organization, you get that information, at top down as well as from your local governments. So it's a really great point that you don't have to always think of a picture perfect image. It's just sharing things that you may already have in your wheelhouse. To wrap up, I think we can just give a little bit of a summary of what we really discussed thus far, which is going between internal and external communication. Being from Promo Republic and focusing on the external side, I do just want to hit home our key points on external communication to continuously have your content updated on a regular basis. You need to still maintain that posting cadence that you had before COVID happened, or even that you increased during COVID, because now, as discussed today, we're all looking for information from all angles to stay informed and to hopefully slowly and surely reapproach society. The second, just like Dan actually just mentioned, is emphasize your concern for the safety and what you're doing, what your processes are. This could be as easy as Dan mentioned, as sharing your internal information and repurposing it, obviously for consumer facing, and that obviously ties directly into leveraging the different types of content. We saw some really great examples today. Some were just really quick photos taken, some were written out posts on the processes, others were just stylized images. So it's whatever holistic approach you want to take, but make sure it's varied, and more importantly, that it's brand consistent for all locations. I think the risk with a franchise and putting more leverage in the franchisee's hand, or maybe not the risk, but the fear, is that it's not going to be branded. But through Promo Republic and education, branding is the utmost important, especially as a franchise, because you're buying into that business. So making sure that everything you're creating is still reflective of the franchisor and the hard work that they put into creating the brand. And internal communication is just the same, right, Dan?
Absolutely. And to kind of take that now to, the internal thought processes is that, just like external, it's not a one-way communication. It's a two-way street. So one of the things that our clients use all the time is this ability to create this feedback from employees. Again, we're in this process right now that's unprecedented times, but reality, it really is. So we need to keep that level of communication open. So constantly collecting and analyzing the feedback we get from the field, and then how can we use that in updating training and making those processes better. One of the other best practices that customers come back to us is that bring physical prizes into some of their gamification initiatives, which is kind of, it seems kind of like, well, basic stuff, but actually what we found was that by bringing in just even small little bit of prizes helps them, of course, want to drive and reach those higher levels and get those prizes. But the actions and the training that are done in the interim of them getting to that ultimately makes them a better employee, a better brand representative throughout that process. Next, of course, is leadership support. That becomes very critical, especially in multi-unit organizations or franchisor that's mainly made up of multi-unit franchisees. We have to get a lot of buy-in from the field to make things really happen. So we want to make sure we go about getting the proper support from leadership and get those training tools out there into the hands of the field so that they can see how this is really going to impact stuff. Ultimately, of course, as we all know, make it accessible anytime on any device. This is we won't get into legal conversations here, but this is the good thing here about this thought process and the introduction of gamification. It does open up an opportunity to possibly allow people to do training in off hours by being involved in a game approach. So it's an at-will gamified training, for a lack of a better word. So again, making the content available on any device, anytime, one of our customers' best practices as well. Right, so one of the things I want to do is share a little bit about VeloFix. VeloFix is a great mobile bike repair franchise based out of Canada. And they came to Ralliware with this with an interesting problem. It was a good problem for them, and that problem was that they were scaling and growing super fast. And what they needed to do was to be able to ensure that their franchisees were getting the necessary training and the needed support that they were going to have to really ensure their success. And so when they went to look for a training platform and a communications and engagement platform, they said that we have to start at scale, because it doesn't do us any good to bring on a platform that that we're going to have to evolve here in a couple of years. So their thought process was, let's go ahead and start at scale, and then we'll grow into it. And that's exactly what they've done. So you can see that great numbers here, 87% increase in franchise engagement. And again, this comes back to, excuse me, the right training or the right content to the right person at the right time. And then 73% improvement in franchise owner training. Again, a lot of times we don't get those types of insights. We have a new franchise that's opening up. Are we ensuring that they are going through the necessary training to be successful? Is it books? Is it manuals? What does that look like? So here we're able to see those insights. We're able to help tailor that training to that specific geographic region, to that specific DMA that they're actually training for. And then ultimately, of course, employees doing the necessary training, so enhanced mechanic training on their side. So we saw about an 80% increase in that training. So a great overall result for VeloFix. And the last thing I'll kind of lead on here is that just like external communication, internal communication needs the same approach, which is get as close to the business operations as possible to increase the outcome of why that content was originally created. So that's Rallyware's approach to overall communications and training.
Great to see that real life application. And we also brought one to the table as well, which is Promo Republic's collaboration with Medi Weight Loss, which is a weight loss franchise throughout the US. And they went from a large partner that really didn't work for them to Promo Republic, which helps them distribute their workflow, and it enables the head office to schedule 2 to 3 times a week for every single location. And then each location has their own access to their own pages where they're scheduling about 2 to 3 times on their own, again, that local information. So it's really important because especially now, the algorithms on social media as well as Google are all about hyper local content. So when a franchisee is posting on their own, in addition, so the content that the head office is giving them, it enables them to be seen by their local community and expand their reach beyond just that, what a franchise page can give you. And we've seen an even increase in these stats, especially adoption within the platform by franchisees during the pandemic, because just like several other organizations, they had to rapidly change their offerings. So they went from seeing patients within their weight loss clinics to telemedicine, curbside pickup on supplements, as well as phone-in prescriptions. And where was all of this information conveyed? It was on social media. They were blasting, every single location was sharing if they're accepting patients in the office. If they are, what are the protocols, or what they are doing? Are they giving, the sanitizing, or are they only doing curbside and telemed? Everything was run through Promo Republic, and it was a really easy way for them to get their consolidated branded images, because everything was more or less prepared by the head office. They just had to, click, drag it into the calendar and add a few words to make it all about their local needs. So it was really inspiring to work with them, because we've been partners for quite a while now, and we've seen them utilize the platform to meet their needs. But in the COVID environment, they really went into overdrive, and we saw them thrive essentially on social media and use Promo Republic to help them get the branded messaging out, but at a local level. So this was a really great case study in itself of just external communication working efficiently during a crisis. And now they're having all of their reopening messages, which ties into essentially everything we discussed today, which is that other side of the COVID slump, which is getting out of it and opening businesses. So with that, I wanted to thank you everyone for joining today. I do see we have some questions here, so I'll go ahead and read off and direct at either Dan or myself. So I think, Dan, the first one I believe is for you, which says, well, I like the idea of personalized learning sets or learning paths based on POS transitional data. Our POS system is very old and outdated. I'm not sure if we can get this. How would you go about providing personalized paths without it?
It's a great question. So thanks to whoever wrote it. One of the things is that it is very important. If we can get that data, then that would be ideal, of course. However, if we don't, one of the things that Rally Rose customers do is they ask a lot of survey questions in the platform itself. So maybe it's something like, how is traffic on the way in? Are we seeing an increase or decrease in traffic flow? And maybe based on that might change something. Or based on what does foot traffic look like at your location? Can we see that increase or decrease? And then does that change the pathway of training for that specific location? Also, again, really just understanding them inside of the Rallyware platform. In this particular case, just asking those surveys, asking those questions, and then triggering the proper training based on how they answer those surveys. One off the top of my head is somebody came to us and they put in an activity that said, hey, I just want to ask them, how do they feel about their personal safety today? And they gave them a sliding scale of 1 to 5. And then based upon how they answered that, they were either triggered a training or triggered some sort of information to help them feel more comfortable about it, or even to go as far as putting a proper workflow in for their manager to maybe they're not quite ready to come back to work yet. So that's just another option. But it looks like maybe we have enough time for one more question. And this one, Raquel, I think is back to you. So here is, the question was, maybe I should cascade all of my posts from my main brand page to local pages. Why should I delegate it to my local teams?
A great question. Thank you, Valerie, for that. So you can absolutely do that. Facebook has that location methodology built in, or known in vernacular parent-child. But the issue with that specifically on Facebook is that you're really limiting the reach as well as the local consumers from getting that information, because unless they're following the main page, they won't see those posts in their newsfeed specifically. So you can have, of course, a corporate branded approach to the content, but it's enabling the franchisees or the locations to share their local information, because number one, franchises at the end of the day are small businesses. These are individual community members that buy into your mission as a franchisor. So these people know their community, they know their neighbors, and they know vernacular. And what I mean by that is, we say things all around the country that are different. I'm from New York, and I would never say y'all, but that is, something that you can easily add on to your Instagram caption or copy in the South, because we know y'all say that quite a bit. So it's just adding these little personal touches on the social feed that really make it personal. And especially, as I mentioned earlier, the trends on social algorithms as well as Google algorithms are trending towards hyper local content. So that's why you even see some of the largest franchises like McDonald's or Dunkin' Donuts or even Subway giving a little bit more control to their franchisees in terms of their own business pages, because we want to see what's happening with our own Subway or our own insert franchise here, because I can appreciate the ad campaign or whatever campaign is happening at that head office level, but I want to know about my corner Dunkin' Donuts. I want to know if they're going to be open. Is it pickup only? So this is really how you're able to engage your audience on that local level and get people engaging with you who are relevant to your market. So you can still have branded content, but just having a little local flair by giving some control or tools to the franchisees to help them thrive on social. So with that, I see we're right at the close of the hour. I wanted to thank Dan for being an amazing co-host and the entire Rallyware team. Again, I'm Raquel from Promo Republic, and we greatly appreciated all of you for taking the time to meet with us today.
Yes, thank you all very much. Thank you, Raquel.